Hey friends, I hope you guys are well. Boy, do I have a treat for us today. A historical treat, to say the least. So this is a century that I'm kind of lacking on. It's the 17th century. And this was a particularly brutal war that occurred during the century. Um, for me personally, it's important to know the big movements of history, the big battles, the big events of history. It helps me frame the present, helps me understand the past. Look, we're looking at total civilian and military deaths upwards of 4.5 to 8 million. Okay, 10 to the 6th. That is a lot of people that have died because of this conflict. So what happened? Let's dig into it. 30 Years' War fought primarily in Central Europe between 1618 and 1648. It was one of the most destructive conflicts in European history. I mean, look at the body count here. This is very destructive. And in terms of the spread, I mean, one can't help but look at the dates of World War I and II. So World War I and II, I mean, it happened, so this is the 17th, that happens 3 centuries later. So 300 years later after this, Central Europe would see another conflict with even more deaths, but not so much more, right? And of course it would be a world war because there would be theaters outside of Central Europe, but there would be, conflicts in Europe as well. So it was fought primarily in Central Europe between 1618 and 1648, and was one of the most destructive conflicts in European history. An estimated 4.5 to 8 million soldiers and civilians died from battle, famine, or disease, while parts of Germany reported population declines of over 50%. What a shame and what a loss. Related conflicts included the 80 Years' War, the War of Mantuan Succession, the Franco-Spanish Torstenson War, the Dutch-Portuguese War, the Portuguese Restoration War. Okay, without getting into them, and I don't know if we definitely do not have time to get into them right now. But let's just do a hover and see. So that's that one. So I'm curious is it related? Is it is this an umbrella for these? It's not clear to me. Related conflicts include. It's not really clear to me if this is connected. Let me know in the comments if these are connected. Like, is this an umbrella term for all of these? Okay, moving on. The war had its origins in the 16th century Reformation. So look at this. We're seeing this picture here. The Reformation, also known as the Protestant Reformation. Okay. So, was a time of major theological uplift and movement in Western Christianity in 16th century Europe. So this is the 1500s. And is this the time? Yeah, so it's usually dated from Martin Luther's publications of the 95 Theses, 1517, which gave birth to Lutheranism. Prior to Martin Luther and other Protestant reformers, there were earlier reform movements within Christian Christianity. Okay, so the war has its origins in the 16th century Reformation, which led to religious conflicts within the Holy Roman Empire. So, the Holy Roman Empire is an empire that has its origins in in the Middle Ages, and it continues until, if I'm not mistaken, like you can. Anyway, no, I'm getting them confused with the Habsburgs. Excuse me. Yeah, the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman, nor an empire, but it does. Yeah, it has its roots. It's connected to the Habsburgs. It has to be. Why do I always remember them with the Habsburgs? Maybe I need to do an episode about this, if I haven't already. So anyways, I'm going to continue here. So the war has its origins in the 16th century Reformation, which led to its religious conflict with the Holy Roman Empire. The 1555 Peace of Augsburg attempted to resolve this by dividing the empire, being the Holy Roman Empire, into both Catholic and Lutheran states. Lutheran, I believe, that emerged from the work of Martin Luther. Luther, of course, wrote the thesis that leads to the Reformation. But the settlement, this Peace of Augsburg settlement, was disestablished by subsequent expansion of Protestantism beyond these boundaries. Combined with differences over the limits of imperial authority, religion was thus an important factor in starting the war. However, its scope and extent was largely the consequence of external drivers, such as the French-Habsburg rivalry and the Dutch revolt. Okay, so the war. The outbreak is generally traced to 1618. Catholic Emperor Ferdinand II was replaced as King of Bohemia by the Protestant. So Catholic is replaced by Protestant named Frederick V of the Palatinate. Although Ferdinand quickly regained control of Bohemia, so Ferdinand quickly tries to control it, Frederick's participation expanded fighting into the Palatinate. So the Palatinate, if we're not super clear what the Palatinate is, so it's a place. Palatine is a historical region in Germany. Okay, just a part of Germany. Southern quarter of Germany, that's all we're talking about. So Frederick expands the fighting into the Palatinate, whose strategic importance drew the Dutch Republic and Spain. So they enter the fight. Then engaged the 80 Years' War. There we go. That's the 80 Years' War. In addition, the acquisition of territories within the empire. It's also not clear to me which sides they join. Drew in the Dutch Republic and Spain. Oh, we can have a look at this, I guess. In addition, the acquisition of territories with the empire by rulers like Christian IV of Denmark, and Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden gave them and other foreign powers an ongoing motive to intervene, combined with fears and the Protestant religion. With fears, the Protestant religion in general was threatened. These factors turned an internal dynastic dispute into European conflict. So, the roots of this conflict seem to me very religious, Christian religious. It seems like it is rooted in sort of Catholic versus Protestant dominance. Interesting. So the period between 1618 and 1635 was primarily a civil war within the Holy Roman Empire, which largely ended with the Peace of Prague. However, France's entry into the war in alliance with Sweden turned the empire into one theater of wider struggles within the Habsburg rivals, Emperor Ferdinand III, and Spain. Fighting ended with the Peace of Westphalia, whose terms included greater autonomy for states like Bavaria and Saxony, as well as accepted for Dutch independence by Spain. The conflict shifted the balance of power in favor of France, and its subsequent expansion under Louis XIV. Yeah, this guy is a big figure in history, an important king. Okay, let's have a look at the quick facts, because this is a lot. This is a bit too much for me to unpack, and I'm a bit confused. And I think I need to do a deep dive to really get this straight. So like maybe get into the structural origins, history, because that definitely left me a bit more confused. But let's just look at the info sheet, the quick facts. So in terms of the belligerents, so the location, of course, Central Europe. Result of the Treaty of Westphalia, territorial changes. This is going to confuse me because I don't even know these areas. So France annexes Tecopole and Sundgau. Sweden gains Weimar, Volyn, Western province of Pomerania, Bremen, Verden. Okay, enough of that, because that's confusing me. Belligerents. So we're looking at anti-Habsburg. So these are anti-Habsburg. Anti-Habsburg. Notice something confusing. Holy Roman Empire has this kind of this yellow with the double kind of black bird crest. You seen this yellow? And here it's called the Holy Roman Empire. Here it's called the Habsburg monarchy. Okay? So that's something we need to reconcile, that they're like synonymous. Anti-Habsburg alliance. So people that are anti-Habsburg, we can also just for my simplicity and to try to grok this, anti-Holy Roman Empire. But I know that I'm simplifying things. Pro-Habsburg. So these are pro-Habsburg. Of course, it's Habsburg, and they have their main alliance is Spanish Empire, Bavaria, and Catholic League. Okay? Bohemia, Sweden, Palatinate, Savoy, Transylvania, Dutch Republic. So there's a lot more here. So I reckon these must be smaller than the other one. Look, this is getting into like the 15-minute mark. So I'm gonna cut it short here. And this is still a big question mark for me. But please subscribe if you guys enjoyed this. As always, you can reach out to me through comments. I'm like a really small channel at this point, so I'm gonna respond to mostly everything. Of course, put some thought into it, because I'll put some thought into it also. So it's only fair if we put thought into our comments. If you want to help me try to grok this and understand this, just so that I can kind of understand what's going on with this 30 Years' War, please let me know. And that's it for this one. Wiki with Me is signing out.